Welcome to Synchronicity. It's been a long time, guys. I know, but I'm back. I'm back and I'm actually going to be recording regular episodes. So that's fun. How have you been? Things have been totally normal. Nothing weird going on, right? Everything's been totally chill. The opposite of that has likely been true for you. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. We're going to get back to basics. We're going to get back to kind of how to live in a world where you know you're creating your own reality, right? We accept this as true. It can be uncomfortable, inconvenient at times, but we know that it's true. But sometimes we forget. We go out of sync, no pun intended. And I want to talk a little bit about that from a personal standpoint, but also hopefully something that resonates with you from a more universal standpoint. So for me, the past year and a half has been incredibly trying and difficult. I had a new kid, already have two other kids. I've been joking, everyone goes to Burning Man, so intense, so crazy. Try having 3 fucking kids. That's intense. That's crazy. A fun time in the desert, not so crazy. But it was a lot going on. And like anyone who has had children, you know that there's only so much preparation you can do for actually having a child. There's always more to it than you could have anticipated. It doesn't matter how many you've had. It's just a crazy thing. So I went through a pretty difficult transition into adapting into a new life, right? I mean, I had done so much work in terms of accessing desires and manifesting really just an incredible, awesome existence. And when everything started happening and I started getting everything that I wanted and kind of knew that was coming, I got stuck in this ebb state, right? We have ebb and flows, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And I know other people go through this. Like, we spent the past 3 years of this podcast kind of talking about how to move into flow states and imaginal realms and living an inspired and creatively motivated life. But what happens when you get out of sync with that? And I don't want to say I did a disservice, but when things are going great, you don't tend to dwell on when things can't be going great. And I think it's important to address kind of when we get out of those states. What do we do to not necessarily recapture the magic, but how do we learn the lessons we're supposed to be learning? Because ultimately, if we're going through kind of a down period or a difficult period or even a depressed period, right, we're not necessarily thinking about the good that can come from this. That's one of the reasons that these states can perpetuate for so long and kind of spiral, is because we just feel like, why is this happening to me? Right? I am the creator of my realm. Why would I put myself through any type of difficult experience? It doesn't make sense. But one thing I really learned is that the dark times, going into the darkness, really teach you more about yourself than when everything is super flowy and great. And it's an inconvenient truth because we do want to live in a state where we're constantly empowered and feeling that everything is humming along perfectly. But that is really not the experience of life that almost all of us get, right? We go through phases. We go in and out of sync. We get magically creative, inspired, and then we get these times where we kind of get lulls or maybe stuck or stagnate a little bit. And I just want to talk a little bit more about those periods and some of the things that I was able to do to get out of them. And I don't want to say like you stay out of a state, but you learn more. Like, the one thing that happens with us as people is, right, there's this spectrum or continuation of differentiation and integration, right? As individuals, we are constantly striving to differentiate ourselves and find our unique talents and abilities and share those with the world. But if we're constantly differentiating, we can get into an antagonistic state. We can then have that kind of evolve or devolve into a nihilistic state. And what do we do to kind of integrate lessons that we've learned throughout this spectrum of challenges and results, right? So a lot of what I've been focusing on in the past year and a half is this dichotomy between abundance and lack. And everyone knows I really enjoy money and the energy of money for this very reason, because it is something we all deal with. And how do you feel abundance when every external signal that you're experiencing is reducing your abundance, seemingly, right? You're moving into harder times, constricted times. And this is very appropriate because I don't know if you've noticed, but the global economy, not so hot right now. Europe's in for a rough ride this winter with a lot of energy, shortages. This Ukraine war with Russia is really draining a lot of people's ability to kind of stay stable. Inflation is getting out of control pretty much everywhere. Anyone who's been involved in the crypto markets or the stock markets knows that we're in a pretty heavy bear market. Things are going down, right? It's not the easiest time to kind of eke out a living playing stocks or crypto. So what do you do? How do you kind of exist in these periods of downturns? And for me, just in my life, I tend to pile it on, right? Whether that's good or that's bad, I amplify whatever the energy of what's going around is. And that can be very difficult, right? I mean, if you're doing great and everything is flowing wonderfully, it's amazing. But when things get really kind of dark and menacing and scary, you don't want to fall into the trap of believing that that is something being done to you. So if you recognize this principle that you do create your own reality, your imagination literally summons forth experiences for you to go through and grow through, ideally, it makes it a little bit easier. But barring that, I do want to say physically, right? It's incredibly important to take care of yourself. That is something that I have known for a long time. I really discovered its true power about 3 years ago. And I kind of lost that, right? I got comfortable. I started making a lot of money, stopped paying as much attention to my physical well-being. It got difficult for a lot of different reasons. And one thing I just want to remind you, whatever you can do to stay in tune with your body, that is well worth the time and effort you spend. Listen to your body. Listen to the signals that it's telling you. Listen to what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. No one else is going to tell you what the proper course of action is, right? You may be able to glean insights from other people's perspectives, but no one is really ever going to be able to give you the blueprint for what is your ideal expression of optimal physical, emotional, spiritual, mental health is, right? That's you. So this aspect of being able to listen to our inner call is something I think that we probably want to put as much emphasis on as humanly possible. And what this means is that don't push away that voice in your head saying, you should maybe be doing this, or maybe cut this out for a little bit. That's incredibly important. The name of this episode is Energy is Joy Delight. That's a William Blake quote, right? Love William Blake, one of the true imaginal pioneers. Go check him out if you haven't. His poetry, his art, it's just really incredible stuff. Really ahead of his time in a lot of different ways. And that quote, energy is joy, delight, really kind of breaks down the secret of what we're going for in life, right? A lot of us sometimes are just living by not dying, right? We're just existing, which is a life, and no one would deny that that is a life, but that's not really why we're here, right? We don't incarnate in this realm to just exist, right? That's like, we could be a rock if we wanted to do that. And as far as I know, we're not rocks right now. But why are you here? What is it you're trying to do? Is it to scale the ladder of success? Is it to realize your own capacity for abundance? Is it to be able to share your art, your creative vision? Is it to harness and hone important relationships? Right? All of these things can be something you're interested in doing, but really asking yourselves the questions like, what is it that I want to be doing in this life? What do I want to be in this life is something that is critical for any real type of manifestation or imaginal activity that you're going to do. So when you stop asking those questions, you're kind of giving up the reins to deeper levels of your subconscious and your unconscious, which you're not going to really have any insight or clarity as to why things are happening to you or seemingly, or why you're doing the things you're doing. So getting focused on what it is that you want to experience is the first step. That's why we don't knock desires, right? We recognize them as tools that allow us to essentially laser focus on what we would like to experience or what experiences we're trying to get from life. And if you lose track of those fundamental questions, you're basically like just letting someone else control the station, right? You're letting them put on the songs that they want to listen to, and that can have many valuable lessons embedded in it, but it's ultimately not what we really want to be doing, right? We want to be kind of taking the reins, feeling empowered in our lives, knowing how to deal with challenging situations, right? When you really find out what you're made of and what your character is not when everything is going well, right? Trust me, I love when things go well. It's one of my favorite things in life, but you're not really going to find out where you're at when that happens. So begin to appreciate kind of those ebb periods, those down periods, those trough periods. As long as I fought against those states of being, the more they kind of entrench themselves in my psyche. And I know this happens for a lot of people. So one of the ways that we can do that is really showing ourselves self-love, right? In all of the ways that it can manifest, but really making sure you have time and space set aside for yourself. And it does not matter the circumstances. I know it gets infinitely harder as we grow up and either have children or take on more responsibilities or ascend our career paths, whatever they are. But it is probably the most important thing that you take time and set aside time for your well-being. Ultimately, self-love isn't an expression of narcissism or being selfish. It's really the truest form of selflessness, because you can't do shit for anyone if you are not taking care of yourself, right? So really just making sure it's a priority in your life to focus on the things that are important for you. And no matter what, if you have a partner, if you have a family, clearly communicating that these are things that you need to do for yourself. Because here's the truth. If you're around people that you love and you're not feeling in control or like yourself or at your best or just feeling good, you're not really with those people. You're likely caught in your head. You're likely being a diminished version of yourself. And that's not what we want to be doing. We want to be inspired and inspire other people, right? If you're listening to this podcast, I know that that's clearly one of your goals in life. You wouldn't listen. I'm insufferable if that's not what you want to do. No one wants to listen to someone being positive about things if you don't really want to be inspired or inspire other people. So when you kind of get out of sync with yourself, try to focus on the things that truly bring you joy in your life. And if it feels difficult, right? If it feels like an insurmountable goal that you just can't get a hold of, take it one step at a time. I really am a firm believer that you do the little things as much as you can. They tend to cascade into the bigger things, right? If you know you should be working out or getting some physical exercise, don't set a crazy diet and game plan for yourself. You're going to exercise 7 days a week for 3 hours a day. Take a walk, get outside, walk on a treadmill for 15, 20 minutes. Do whatever you need to do. Do some push-ups. Don't set too lofty of goals for yourself. Now, in tandem with the imaginal acts, witnessing and living from the place where you know that you will achieve that which you desire in terms of your well-being is powerful. One of the things, and this may be hard for some of you to believe because I have a podcast about this and I talk about it relentlessly on the podcast, I forgot that I should be doing imaginal acts. I forgot that I should be tapping into kind of the divine arts and all of these things that really, when I do them, integrate kind of the deepest lessons I've learned, I forgot. I genuinely was not doing any type of manifestation or divine artwork for a year. I got super caught up in crypto and all these other things going on in my life. And you got to give yourself a pass when you kind of forget about important things in your life. And of course, when I started doing them, all the synchronicities start popping up again. All of the downloads start happening again. And it's just important to remember that like you can lose your way infinite times. But as long as you have the motivation to kind of get back on the path, you will. It may take more time than you want it to. It may be more difficult than you remember it being, but ultimately we don't lose this ability to kind of get in tune with ourselves. So don't give yourself a hard time. One thing that I know has been going on for a lot of people is we're kind of feeling like we're free floating in space, right? We're not as grounded as we have felt in years past. Even if everything has been really fucking, crazy and good and wonderful, like we don't have this core sense of identity. And people are coming to terms with this, every day. But we don't have these indicators that allow us kind of craft an identity and a persona and hang on to it for extended periods of time. And that's just the truth we live in. We could blame it on the internet and social media and whatever other things you'd want to kind of pin it on. But that's just because of the nature of our transitional period we're in. The world is changing. Sorry, my mic got unplugged. One of the best skills that we can teach ourselves is how to be resilient and kind of focus when we need to, right? You're going to get knocked off the horse. You're going to get knocked off the pedestal. It's inevitable. It's what we use, a lot of us, to kind of create motivation and traction. And one of the things we need in life is some tension and friction that propels us forward. And we can create that in a number of ways. It doesn't have to always be miserable and suffering. And I think that's a paradigm that a lot of us have woken up to in the past few years, that tension does not have to be miserable, but we do need it. We do need something to propel us forward. And we create that in all types of situations and relationships in our lives. And don't fight that, right? Don't accept getting like shit on. That's not what I'm recommending, but definitely accept that we do need some type of tension and friction to propel or allow us to move forward or up, ahead, or around the spiral of ascension, right? This is ultimately what we're doing. So we just want to kind of expand our experience of ourself. Right? That's really what we're doing. We're constantly widening the circle of consciousness. I mean, whether we know it or not. And when we constrict that down to a narrow viewpoint or a limited set of experiences, things start to feel, for lack of a better word, shitty, not great, not fun, not like we're living our best life. And that's just the nature of when you constrict your experience, when you whittle it down to a very narrow band of experience, it's not really what you're meant to be doing. You're meant to be expressing yourself outwardly. Right? If we only showed love to our complete inner circle or our family or a tight group of friends, that's like half living a life, right? We have this urge to share our feelings, our thoughts, our artistic creations because we want to expand our world, right? We understand on some fundamental level that everything is one, but that doesn't mean we're just satisfied being one thing. Right? We want to kind of pull in. It's like this Aphrodite, Venus-like love, right? We want things to be in harmony, share the love, gather together, experience what we're going through together, even though it is ultimately at the end of the day, this one kind of hive mind experiencing itself. I do want to just have some realistic optimism embedded in here. I don't think the world is getting worse. I do think it is getting more complex, which requires us to kind of get more simple at times because it can get very challenging if you just go with the complexity nonstop. But it's not things are not getting worse, right? Shattering old paradigms, shining light on dark places can be an uncomfortable process, right? We saw this with all of the kind of partisanship and fighting. The latest one that really divided people was this pandemic and what actions people should be taking versus not taking. I don't want to say I told you so with the COVID and the vaccine stuff, but obviously I think a lot of people are looking back and being like, why did we do all of this? Why did we hate people for deciding what medical decisions they wanted to take with their bodies? It doesn't seem like that was something that was kind of what we naturally came up with. And I also want to be careful to point out, don't blame anyone or anything else on your experiences. We can look at media apparatuses and say, yes, they're pushing an agenda. Yes, they're pushing a narrative. It's not good. They shouldn't be doing that. Yes, money is kind of influencing so many levels of our, our life and institutions that kind of guide us, whether that's tech companies or politics or entertainment. But that's not the source of our friction. Again, we're here because we're resonating with the timeline and the planet that we're on. We can move those timelines to a certain degree, but at the end of the day, you're probably not going to teleport off the planet into some other realm. I mean, you could do some ketamine, of course, and that would help, but you're going to come back to like this base level consensus reality, which is getting weirder and more fractured, but it is something that you've signed up for. You're not here because someone forced you to do this. You're not here because some genetic, propagation of the species and you're just stuck in this kind of place and, oh, woe is me. You're here because you wanted to learn some lessons. And if we negate that or forget that or feel like that's not what we're here for and we're kind of suffering for no reason, that's going to create an experience that is pretty uncomfortable. And so we don't want to stay in those states, but there are benefits for being in those states, right? And again, I think one of those is creating kind of a necessary friction and tension that allows us to propel ourselves out of those states. Ultimately, you're going to learn a lot more from someone who has been in very difficult situations and pulled themselves out of them than someone who's just literally coasted their entire life. And I think that's one of the knocks that happened with my perspective, with imaginal thinking. Oh, you're just going to imagine your troubles away. Bullshit. That's really not what this is about. It's how do we use these things to remember our true selves, our true identities, kind of actualize into the being we would like to be, amidst all of the chaos and uncertainty and things that we have to navigate through this world. That's the real power of this stuff, right? So I also want to talk a little bit about this juxtaposition between activism and awareness. Activism, not necessarily, although it certainly encompasses like social activism, doing things in the world to make change, but just taking action as activism, doing something to get something. That feels like the right thing to do. Our culture certainly has emphasized that for hundreds of years at least, if not more. But the ability to take that step back out of yourself and maintain an awareness of what's going on, pausing, moving outside of yourself, getting a broader perspective, that's really where the powerful stuff is going to come from. So it's not to say you don't work towards becoming a fully integrated person or a more aware person or more enlightened. Of course you do. But those moments of stepping back, right, that tends to be where the inspiration and wonderful, beautiful things happen. So getting familiar, I'm not suggesting that you meditate every day. I know there are huge proponents of meditation and it's helped a lot of people. It has not really been my cup of tea, and not because I just think it's boring, but because it hasn't been the thing for me. What helps me is being motivated, inspired, calling upon the muses, engaging with arts, creativity, inspiring people, making music, getting out there, getting my blood flowing, readings with people. I find I cut down my readings for well over a year. And I realized I essentially cut off a psychic limb
the readings that I provide for people with the tarot and astrology and energy, like I need those, right? Those help me tune in to the collective and understand things that I'm going through, other people are going through, see themes that emerge. And I'm very careful that when anything starts to feel like work in a negative sense for me, to back off. That's why I pulled away from this podcast. I could sense that it was becoming a job for me. It was becoming something I had to do rather than something I wanted to do. And I probably stayed away for a little longer than was appropriate, but I don't ever want anything in the realm of mysticism to feel like a job for me. I think that's where people get jaded. I think that's where a lot of psychic self-harm comes in. I think that's where egos can start to flare because, the more work, like with anything, the more continuity and work you put into anything, you'll probably achieve greater levels of success. So just make sure you're staying in tune with the things that are important to you and that really make you feel like you, knowing that what feels like you also is liable to change a lot in your life, right? I always say, if you look at yourself 5-10 years ago, you always go, oh gosh, how stupid was I? How many things did I not understand? But right now you feel like you understand pretty well. I mean, probably not everything, but in 10 years you'll feel the same way. So don't get too cozy with your kind of metaphysical axioms at all time. That said, this imaginal stuff does work. I don't want anyone to forget it like I had forgotten it. I know it's unbelievable that someone like me could forget this for an extended period of time, but when life is just kicking your ass nonstop and you're basically just trying to cope in any way that you can, it's easy to forget that we have this ability to kind of move extra and interdimensionally through realms and pull out experiences that we feel would be beneficial for us. But it is true. So one of the ones that really helped me a lot was this mirror technique. It's incredibly simple. Its efficacy lies in its simplicity. You imagine yourself in your mind's eye in front of a mirror. So you're staring at yourself in a reflection and you picture the emotional states and potentially physical manifestations of what you desire. This is very, very simple. Again, for the primary principle that you don't feel like you're doing much of anything, but you know that you're doing it, and it's easy to kind of drop that. The principle really rears its head when you really, really want something. You want it so bad. You need it so bad. Do you get that thing quickly? Almost never. That's just not the energy. It's like running up to a wild animal. You're going to scare it away. It's going to run away. But when you plant a seed and you forget about it, it'll grow. Trust me, it'll grow. As long as it's getting watered and the sun is shining on it with your awareness lightly and the water is your energy flowing towards it and your emotions, you're going to be fine, right? It's not going to be something that's elusive in a difficult way. So people know I have this thing where you can write into me and I will imagine on your behalf. And to this day, things I've imagined years ago, people will write to me and be like, I cannot believe this happened. This amazing thing that was seemingly impossible. It finally happened. I was skeptical. I thought it was bullshit. How did you do it? How did you imagine for this? How did it work? The trick is this. I don't actually imagine anyone getting the thing that they want. What I do is I imagine them writing back to me with the emotion and joy of receiving the things that they asked me to imagine for them. That's dead simple on my part, right? All I have to do is just be like, all right, I'm going to get an email. I'm going to get a text. I'm going to get a call from someone and they're going to tell me it works. I don't go around thinking about that for the next however many time periods it takes for that to come back to me. But it works because I've set my intention, I set this thing, and I forget about it. That can be difficult, like I said, when reality is reflecting back to you. Not that, right? In big, bold letters and neon signs, you're not getting the thing that you imagined. It is not happening. What were you thinking? But that is ultimately our challenge. And we kind of recognize and strengthen the muscle of creating our own realms and experiencing the things we want as we move through struggle and conflict in a graceful way. And I am not the poster child for moving through difficult periods in a graceful way. I am lucky enough or smart enough or blessed enough, whatever you want to call it, that I have probably the best support system in the universe in terms of friends and family and loved ones who constantly are able to remind me in a not annoying way that like my shit's pretty good, right? And I see that just in like the material things that I've kind of surrounded myself with. Like I got my dream studio built, but you know what feels kind of shitty when you get the thing you want, you've built this thing you want, and then you don't use it, right? Isn't that kind of a weird feeling? So I at least recognize that I've built and kind of constructed this realm that is just there. I can do whatever I want. But if you get in this period where you're not doing what you want to do, when you have all of the things you want, this is what people talk about when they make so much money and they're still not happy, or they have everything they've ever dreamed of, but they're still not happy. They've just forgotten that they have to literally like dwell in the world of joy, right? Energy is joy, delight, right? What this truthfully means is that your supra spiritual energy comes from your capacity to create circumstances and experience of joy and then literally dwell in them and live in them. Not in a psychotic way, not in a crazy way, not in a way where you're out of touch with everything around you, but really that's what gives you energy. I noticed this thing where when I was getting out of sync and knew I was out of sync with myself and kind of losing touch with these magical aspects of my being, my energy levels, my physical energy levels just plummeted to the point where it was very difficult for me to even kind of do anything. I was doing the bare minimum to hang on and take care of the responsibilities of being a parent, a partner, a son, a friend. Like I just didn't have the energy for doing it. And I realized that's what depression looks like for me. Is just like I'm in this state of stagnation, unable to pull myself out from my own bootstraps for an extended period of time. And at times it can feel like, will I ever get back to normal? Will I ever feel like myself? Whatever that means. And of course you will. But you may not be able to do it as quickly as you want. But this, again, is when we use these things that I focused on, what Neville Goddard has spoken about. I'm reading an excellent book by Rollo May right now. What is it? Man in Search of Himself. I highly recommend it. Find out the voices that you resonate with. Find the music that touches your soul. Find a creative endeavor that really just gets your energetic kind of psychic juices flowing, and stay around that shit. Do whatever you need to do to kind of exist and survive until you gain your ability to charge that battery, that health bar back up, because it will get charged back up. You may need to switch games you're playing to get to the right one that kind of really works for you, but it always comes back. There's one thing that's true, nothing ever stays the same here. This world is completely made up of change and possibility, and that's a beautiful thing, but it can also be tragic, right? And tragedy is not something that's bad, right? I want to be clear about this. You don't want to seek out tragedy. You don't want to be like, I resonate with tragedy on such a strong level. It's all I want to experience. But it is something that gives our lives depth. It allows things to move us. It allows things to kind of deepen our experience of being human and being a spiritual being in a human body. How many cliche tropes can I use today? A lot. But it is something that's important for us, right? Don't negate things in life that are seemingly negative. Don't necessarily seek out the disharmony and dissonance all of the time, although there can be value in that. But don't negate it, because anything you negate, anything you deny, anything you condemn, you are destined to experience. That's like the easiest manifestation 101. You know, the thing you really don't want, the thing you definitely fucking hate, that thing is coming your way. So if you want to like reverse it a little bit and make the things that you actually really want and say you definitely don't want them, that even works. But just be careful that you check yourself before you wreck yourself, essentially, right? You don't want to kind of make things too difficult or too good at any point for yourself, because you are destined to feel kind of the flip side of that, like the law of reciprocity, right? So again, this idea of differentiation and integration, this is the game we're playing ultimately, right? We are playing this game of how do we experience different aspects of ourselves, of our lives, of other people, of relationships? And then how do we integrate those experiences into our lives? A lot of us forget the integration part of it, because the integration part cannot be always the funnest part, right? It is reflection, it's sitting in stuff, it's laying in our own beds that we've made for ourselves. Hopefully they're nice. But it's the real kind of yeoman's work, the real grit of what we need to do to kind of level up, right? I don't love to use these terms in terms of like a linear progression, because that's not what it is. And we know that because we can move up and down this spiral pretty damn quickly in any direction given our choices. But we are trying to evolve. We are trying to use more of our consciousness. We are trying to expand our understanding and clarity of the things that are below our perceptual realm of understanding, right? We do want to experience everything that the collective unconscious is willing to offer us in the healthiest and safest way possible. But again, we're not craving lives of stability so much. There's value to stability. It gives you a platform in which to do things from. But like, let's just admit, we're in a fucking chaotic world. We're in a world that oftentimes doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, doesn't seem to be incredibly logical, even if it's presented as that. And it's our challenge and our mission to kind of figure out how to fucking do that by being awesome, by do that by being cool in a graceful, light way too. One thing I will say about any dark periods you may be going through, you'll notice it does not feel light. It feels like the most important thing in the world, right? Which is better than it feeling like nothing. That's real kind of scary territory, is when you're just numb to everything, right? For an extended period of time. But like, heaviness is not the vibe we're going for. It doesn't feel good for you or anyone else around you. So just try to take note of where you are at any given point. Does this feel light? Is there a path to lightness? Is there a path towards levity? Can I see the humor and the comedy of my situation? Because when you start doing that, you'll notice you move to different states, right? It's like creating different neural pathways in your mind, where the next time you experience something difficult or challenging, maybe you don't take it as hard as before. Maybe you don't kind of go into a pattern that, reemphasizes traumatic responses to things, right? And I do want to talk about trauma for a little bit. We all have trauma, ranging from mild to severe, and probably both, right? Don't let your mission to heal your trauma define your existence. You can acknowledge trauma. You can acknowledge patterns it may have created in yourself, how you react in different situations, but don't think that your whole game. Don't make your whole game a trauma healing session. That's not fun. It's not cool. It's not ultimately what you want to be doing. It is a reflective process that looks back in time. We do want to move forward in time. We do want to move in the other direction at times. So yes, we want to work on our trauma. Yes, we want to acknowledge things that could have influenced our current mindsets and perspectives, but we don't want to make that our whole fucking game. We really I see a lot of healing trauma and trauma patterns and all of this stuff. And I know a lot of it is very useful for kind of identifying and getting clarity on our patterns, but don't make that your whole game, right? And again, what I feel is the emerging game right now is being comfortable in uncertainty, being comfortable in not knowing exactly what you want, being comfortable in not having as clear of a path as you once did or thought that you did. That's when the fun shit emerges, right? If you go out one day and don't have any plan on where you're going and what you're going to do, those are the days where the magic really starts to happen, right? You meet new people, you experience different things. So don't get too routine oriented. For me, that's difficult. I love routine. I love something I can do over and over again and experience comfort and safety. Of course, it's wonderful, but you miss out on a lot of growth and integration like that, because you're not really differentiating again, right? So that's just things that I've learned going through the darkness and emerging. And I want to be very clear with people, like, of course I go through shit. Knowing these techniques, knowing what I know about myself and the world, it doesn't make me immune from suffering. It doesn't make me immune from being sad or getting depressed or having a difficult time or dealing with difficult situations. But it does at least give me kind of like an escape hatch from those things. And it's up to me when I want to take that escape hatch, when I want to use it, when I want to hit the eject seat and say, fuck this. I don't want to live like this anymore. And I know a lot of people don't have access to that, and they get stuck at one time or another through circumstance or otherwise in these states that really just grasp them for their whole lives. And they wake up one day and they're just like, fuck, what have I been doing with my whole life? I've been wasting this opportunity to really get to the meaning and kind of self-searching, this quest to find who I really am. Who am I? I've been kind of like wasting the time that I've been given or given myself to kind of experience this stuff. And I don't want that to happen for you. You're a cool fucking person. You're an awesome person. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to experience the things that, you know, you think are possible or may have never even thought are possible, because ultimately there's nothing that restricts any one person from experiencing the things they want to experience in their life, but their lack of imagination or lack of belief in themselves. And I know that. And if you read any great saint or teacher or prophet or whatever, they're going to tell you the exact same thing, because that's ultimately what you realize when you keep digging down. Who am I? What am I? What is this? You'll find unlimited potential, unlimited energy, unlimited creativity. And it's our jobs to figure out, how do we express that? How do we enrich our own lives and the lives of others around us in the best possible way that feels good for us, but also allows in all of the experiences of being human, the good and the bad, the light and the dark, the happy and the sad. And I'm just here to kind of remind you that if you're going through a difficult time, if you're having difficulties in any aspect of your life, you and you alone have the power to change that. I'll be here to help and remind you and talk about all of these things and talk to interesting people about how they do it and have some laughs and do some drugs and have some fun times. But like, it's you. This is your fucking game. Right? Find some joy in it. Find some happiness in it. And if you're not feeling like that, that's totally okay. Don't feel that you have to live a persona of someone who's always happy or always on top of it or always magical or always great. You are, ultimately. You are always magic. I hope you know that. But you don't have to feel like that all the time. Allow yourself to feel the full spectrum of human emotions. There's infinite emotions, infinite of them. We don't know all of them. We have kind of shitty words and vernacular to communicate some of them, but allow yourself to feel however you're feeling at the time. That allowance, that awareness is ultimately what will move you through it, right? And that's important. We want to move through things that are no longer benefiting us. If we hang on, if we cling to things, it's like a lot of weight over time. And you want to cut those cords and be able to kind of ascend to this period and experience of grace and levity and lightness. That's when the magic of, the divine arts really starts to rear its head. It's when you get into extremely creative periods and do the things that like put yourself in a position to really actually experience that. Like, I love making music. Nothing makes me feel more in tune with myself when I'm sitting there and I'm making music. But I can make that more difficult or not easy for myself, right? If I'm not putting myself in a position to be making music every day or damn near every day, I will lose touch with that. And then things will start to feel off. If I'm not taking the necessary kind of steps to make sure I'm physically okay, I will lose touch with that. Anyone will. So try to set up your life in a way that's conducive for the things that are really important to you, if you have discovered those yet. If you don't know right now what you really want to be doing or what you should be doing, that's totally okay too. Know that just you asking that question or being interested in it will lead you to that path. And just try to stay as light as possible. Page of Cups energy. right? Page of Cups energy. Stay as light as you possibly can, because we're definitely going to be going through some heavy shit, right? It doesn't get less heavy as we navigate through time and space, in my experience. But our ability to stay untethered or unencumbered by things that would potentially be heavy for us, that's up to us. Ultimately, it's totally up to us. Wow. 45 minutes. I got to say, when I get back on these things, I remember why I do it, because it feels right to be talking about these things, to be sharing these things. If you have any questions, obviously you can always reach out to me at noah@syncpodcast.com. Readings are back open. We're doing special financial energy readings. I think that's very appropriate for the times that we're in. We're also doing regular readings with tarot. We can do astrology stuff. They're great. I mean, I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of these readings at this point. I find them to be beneficial for pretty much any circumstance in life. I'm not big upping myself, but I do know that there is a special connection for the people who sign up for these things and what we go through during the readings. They say 15 or 20 minutes. They're usually longer. I'm usually not kicking people off at the end of the time. We go deep with these things. So those are back open. You can find those on syncpodcast.com, the website, and then there is a readings tab, and you can sign up through there. That's probably the only thing. The Patreon. Let's talk about the Patreon. I've made fun of it many times for really not adhering to my end of the bargain. I have a streaming setup. I broke my computer screen when I was in Turkey. I'm going to replace it. I have all the replacement parts, but it looks pretty complicated. I don't want to fuck it up. But I have a webcam. We're going to be getting the streaming up and going probably the end of this week. I have a few weeks before my wife and youngest son get back from Turkey. So I have a little bit more in time and space to kind of really ramp these things up. Feel free to sign up for the Patreon within the next couple of weeks and actually get your money's worth. There is the Discord there that we still have for crypto. No, crypto is not dead. No, it's not the end of the world. Yes, it's not so great right now. But this is unlike other bear markets I've seen before where it's just like dead. There's tons of stuff going on every single day. It's a crazy innovative space. The next run will be absolutely mind-melting, cool. So that's always going on. That Discord, by the way, you can join. You do not have to stay a Patreon forever to have access to it, or a patron forever. You can pay and then quit, right? That's the offer. But I do think it's important to exchange the energy of money for these things, because it kind of opens up those doors. It's why I charge for readings. It's why I charge for the Patreon and the Discord. It's just been my experience, when you pay for things, you tend to take them a little bit more seriously and open yourself up to those aspects of what you're looking for. We're going to be doing some music stuff on streaming too, on Twitch. A lot of music creation. I just want to have some fun with it. I'm going to use my years and decades of experience to just like create some fun musical experience for people. Live events. We have a really dope space in Brooklyn that can be used for any type of live event that you can imagine. We're going to be imagining some cool ones coming up. I don't have anything concrete planned, but now that COVID pretty much seems to be over and looks like we don't have to worry about monkeypox, and we'll wait for the next one they tell us about, I think getting together in person is one of the more powerful things we can do. So keep your eyes and ears open. If you have any ideas, or you yourself would like to throw a cool event and you're in the New York area, or you think you're going to be in the New York area, hit me up. We can do some cool shit. That's it, guys. I'm happy to be back. These will be coming out far more regularly. I'm not going to do it daily, but we'll get back to weekly or bi-weekly for sure. I've missed you. I loved you. Thank you for bearing with me while I abandoned you completely to pursue dreams of being a crypto overlord. I'm back. No matter what happens, I'll be here. This is something I truly enjoy doing. I needed to take a sabbatical to kind of get my mind and spirit right. I feel good. I hope you can hear it in my voice. I'm ecstatic to be back and speaking to you again. You're cool. You're awesome. Hang in there. Lots of cool shit you could never imagine or believe is going to come your way. know that to be true and watch that happen is all I can say. Okay, until next time, bye-bye.